This E3 demo is presented by State Farm.
All right, Rev 3 games at E3 here at the Vivid Touch booth. I've been really looking forward to this game, and the fact that it's going to be able to come out as it should have always is just great. Saints Row 4, Steve Jaros, creative director.
Yes, sir.
Over at Volition. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I just want to start at the beginning. I still think Saints Row 3, it was such a wonderful, wonderful game and so funny, and I felt that you guys deserve a lot more love and purchases.
Oh, thank you.
I think you might get it now with your new bosses here.
No, thank you so much.
With Saints Row 4. It's a very funny game, as with Saints Row 3. How do you guys approach the humor?
So one of the things that I think is kind of key to Saints Row's humor is that while the situations are very ridiculous and silly, the characters play it entirely straight. And because the player kind of acts as the straight man in these more whimsical situations, that's what creates a lot of the humor from it. Because rather than a lot of games try to play up, like, say, either a slapstick nature of it, but because there's so much earnestness in how the characters react to situations, that's what makes it even more funny. So we want to try to keep it honest, and we just let the situations be absurd, but the characters within it are very serious about the absurdity.
And I gotta say, absurdity. Let's go ahead and start looking at this demo. Okay, so the Saints are now in the White House,
Sir.
and their superpowers. Like, just one of those two would have been, let's ratchet up the absurd, but you decided to go for those two together.
Right. We like to kind of say that the most normal part of our game is that you are the president of the United States. It's like our baseline. It only gets crazier from there. It's pretty fantastic, and in a weird way, it's actually strangely logical. So in the first game, you're a gang member. In the second game, you're a gang leader. In the third game, you're a pop culture icon. So where do you go next, right?
You're right. Political office, yes, the highest in the land. Now, how are the superpowers introduced into this game?
All right, so we knew that we wanted to go and have superpowers, and so then you have to figure out how do we go and justify this. One of the first things that came in mind is, who do you fight? If you're super jumping, you're throwing ice blasts. What's a gang gonna do, right? So we need a bigger, badder enemy. And so it's like, okay, aliens. All right, so now we have aliens. They can have weird technology and weird weapons and things like that. So that can go and fight. And then aliens also can give us an excuse for having superpowers. So they can abduct you. They abduct the president because that's what they do. They abduct world leaders. They don't realize that they abducted the world's most dangerous man or woman and threw them into their ships so you can wreak havoc. So because you're put in this virtual simulation aboard the ship, you're then able to go and break the rules, gain superpowers, and do whatever you want in this sort of Matrix-esque place.
Let's first go to this. Obviously, Saints Row, the third, really, you guys indulged the humor.
Right.
It was almost like you had some shackles taken off. You broke away from kind of the gang mode of the first two games. How liberating is that for you? And is that where the humor comes from, or did you decide to do the humor and that became liberating?
This has been like a joy to make. I can honestly say this is my favorite Saints Row game that I've worked on. I've worked on all of them, and it's been so freeing because what we've been able to do with this virtual construct, we're able to go and bend reality and just do things that we think will just be interesting and funny. And so since each of the characters has their own personal hell that you kind of go into their psyche, and so we can base levels around like their own neuroses and their own personal hang-ups, we can really go and explore and do crazier things than we could ever do when we were bound by reality. And in a weird way, the game with aliens and superpowers is almost like the most tightest narrative structure that we have, because there's an actual reason for things. And
then right here you're allowing for, I don't know if that's if that's a choice that has any effect on anything.
Well, you just cured cancer or solved world hunger. I think you just changed everything, sir. Let's not kid ourselves.
I love this game so much. The other thing that happens in Saints Row the Third, I'm assuming it's something that you can experience here in 4, is you violated the traditional structure of games of this nature, which is start small, and over time you earn the things that are really the more seductive aspects of the game. Superpowers, aliens, holding highest office. I mean, what do you start with, and where do you go with that?
Okay, so this is one of my favorite things about not only the game but the franchise, where it's like this delightful fever dream of a zero-depth madness. So when you start the game, if you play the first mission of the game and the last mission of the game, you'll be like, what the fuck just happened? But when you go and you play it down that trajectory, it's like the most logical thing ever. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of like Fast and the Furious, right? In Fast and the Furious 1, they're stealing a truck full of DVD players. In Fast 6, they're stopping terrorists and like stealing tens of millions of dollars. And you just go along for the ride, and you totally love it every step of the way. Saints Row is the same thing. If you played Saints Row 1 and then played Saints Row 4, Jesus Christ, what happened? But if you play 1, then 2, then 3, it's like this is the most logical conclusion for where we've been going.
Okay, so here are our aliens. So this is our alien leader.
He's Zinyak. He loves literature. In the game, he actually you can listen to him read the entire first chapter of Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah, that's the thing. He speaks with a very proper English accent. I mean, there seems to be even more satire, kind of social commentary in this one than even what we saw in the third one. I mean, what is the Saints Row vision of America and American values?
It's oh man, it's such a good question. No, there's a lot of stuff that I think that we're able to go and get away with because it's a comedy game, so we can actually start doing things that a lot of other AAA titles might not do because they're trying to go and like fit a specific image or a specific thing, but because we're kind of looking at the absurdity of everything, like we can really go and say things and do things that other games would never do. Like how many AAA action games could have an overweight person as your action hero who's the leader of the free world? You know what I mean? And
it also, the gameplay, the humor is also in the gameplay. We see a lot of games where it's the same type of game, but now there might be some funny things that happen in a cutscene, or that there's some ambient dialogue. But you've actually made the act of playing the game strangely humorous.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, sort of what, not that you should give away your secret sauce, but I mean, how do you focus first on the game, or then do you, and that helps bring out the story, or do you start with the story and that builds the gameplay?
So it's a little of both. So on the Saints Row franchise, we have two mantras that we hold true to. One is embrace the crazy, and two is fun trumps all. And so with those things in mind, like we make sure that like when we're developing the story, I go and sit down with like the lead designer, we sit down with art directors, we just kind of go, designers and other writers, and we go and kind of chart out what we want this high level vision to go and be like within our boundaries. And then we start breaking things down to smaller chunks and start brainstorming. Like a brainstorming meeting for Saints Row is one of the finest things ever. Like a lot of people have talked about, say, the dubstep gun. And I think that this is a perfect microcosm of how the insanity of Volition works out. Two groups of people at the company were both subsequently developing a dubstep gun without the other group knowing that it was even happening. And then eventually they found out that both of them were doing it, and then it all merged to create one beautiful,
that is awesome.
magical thing. And so like people just didn't even know that the other group was even doing it because it's just kind of the environment that we cultivate.
I don't know if we're going to get to see the dubstep gun in this demo, but what does it do? Other than, obviously, I imagine it sounds like dubstep.
It uses the power of music to bring low your enemies. No, I mean, you pull the trigger, you hold it down, it starts a party in a box, everyone starts dancing, cars start bouncing, and everything starts glitching out on the screen. It's pretty fun.
So right here, we're finding a sequence of gameplay. Is there anything that you sort of have decided to change up? Things you learned from Saints Row the Third that you want to kind of really double down on? Yeah,
I think one of the things that's really interesting, and it's not seen in this section here, but as you get into the open world, we changed the way that health functions, because once you get superpowers, you can jump over buildings, you can run away, so regenerating health doesn't work as well because you can always get away from combat, and we want to reward the player for being aggressive and trying to make them feel like more of an action hero. So what we've done now is whenever you kill an enemy, they drop health in the simulation for you to pick up. So rather than run away when there's conflict, you have to run into it in order to go and survive it, right? And so it's a very much a proactive stance.
Do you find that sort of challenging when you know that you want people to kind of not play the game in the more conditioned way that we've been taught to approach certain type of game genres, that you have to work a little hard in the first few hours to really say, stop thinking it that way, play the game the way that we would like you to play it?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's this kind of beautiful moment when people first kind of start off and they're holding the controller, and even in this demo, we're like, okay, what do? I have superpowers, what does that all mean? And then after like maybe a few minutes, they start seeing how these things all start connecting, and then they start making these steps. It was interesting because there was a guy who was a big Saints Row 2 fan who just played the game, and when he first started off, he was playing the combat like he would in Saints Row 2. And then he realized, like over time, like, oh, this is how I'm supposed to go and play now. And he had this big grin on his face as he's taking a more active role than he ever had in the past.
It's almost like being silly and having fun. It's like, and breaking the rules, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, it's fun. It's like a naughty secret that we all got to be in on.
So, if you don't mind, we're going to break away just from Saints Row to talk for a second.
Yeah.
This game is coming out on current gen, which is just a fine thing, but what are you seeing now with a lot of the online, the potential of the cloud that's happening with the new consoles that you might be able to sort of take advantage of in game development down the line?
You know, it's interesting. Like this answer is not particularly sexy, but it's an honest one. One of the things that we've been having a lot of problems with Saints Row is memory limitations. Like with Saints Row, we actually have, because we have 7 different player selectable voices, and we actually hit a limit of how much audio we could have in the game, and so we had to cut lines out because we ran out of space. Wow. And so we actually hit that upper limit, and being able to go in and kind of free that up, we can have more options for varied voice and things like that is a very exciting thing for us. Plus, customization for the player character, when you have co-op with that, it's a huge memory sink, and so it's hard for us to go and do a lot of the things that we kind of like to have the density that we'd always want to, because we have to go and account for so many different variables. And so just even that alone is like a godsend, because over the course of the past 8 years, we're kind of pushing the upper limit of what we can do now.
I mean, it's almost like you don't realize it because the game isn't saying, look at how awesome I am. It's like, look at how silly and fun I am. But there is a lot of technical challenge that you guys seem to be having to handle in a game like Saints Row.
Yeah, and I think I'm so excited as things are. Community is really important to us. It's like you can go and upload your character from Saints Row 3 and then download that in Saints Row 4. And so having that the more connected people sharing and owning their experiences with each other, I think is going to be that's what Saints Row is all about, right? It's about creating something for you and then showing that silliness with your friends and sharing that. So I'm really excited for where we're going.
All right, so right here, I think we're getting to the last part of the demo. If you want to sort of walk us through.
Right. So this here is the moment when the player gets abducted by Zinyak, and so after a confrontation in the White House, the player thinks that he's got it all locked down, but he's about to find out that the Zin are a little more formidable than they anticipated. Our villain was played by J.B. Blanc. He's a total rock star. You can actually hear him up on the new. He's Alfred in the new Batman cartoon show, and he's a beast. He's fantastic.
So you guys, I mean, obviously have to be very careful about finding your voice actors, because the humor is going to live or die. Obviously, the talent of these people.
It is a meticulous process. Actually, I was really lucky when we found Troy Baker, because on Saints Row 3,
is Troy Baker in this one as well?
He is. We have a couple ones. But it's funny because on Saints Row 3 when we cast him, I literally went through hundreds of auditions until I found the one that this guy gets the humor. This is what it has to go and be. And all of the player voices, the exact same way. There was one voice that we were casting for that we went through 3 weeks of casting just for one role, because they had to get it just right for it to be perfect for our game.
Unfortunately, with that, we're going to have to, I think it's nice time for you to go. I see someone back there. But thank you so much for this wonderful chat.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
The game is coming out on August 20th.
Absolutely.
Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. I cannot wait to play.
Thank you, sir.
Again.
Have a good one.
Remember, in real life, you can't just reload your last save. Take your insurance game to the next level. Visit statefarm.com.